Welcome to Close Up. This month and the next in this segment that I do on cinema, I want to take a slightly different approach. Most of my points of focus have been on film style and some of the great innovations and some of the great filmmakers. I suppose from this month and the next, I want to look at the politics of cinema. How do some of the most popular and enduring works speak politically to us? How do they establish a politics? Let's start with one of my favorite scenes in all of cinema.
You're gonna break his arm! Biff! Biff! Leave him alone! Let him go! Let him go!
Are you okay?
So one of the very famous sequences in Hollywood of this period, and as always, just watching this with you, I'm also swept away. It's a great American film fantasy. The archetypal American loser, George McFly. Powerless, alienated from his social world, a kind of closeted nerd with very little contact. But in this stunning moment, he lays out Biff Tannen, the villain, with a single blow. And George McFly is suddenly, kind of spontaneously reconstructed as a heroic figure. He wins, and he wins the girl, of course. He is in fact quite literally, as he tells Lorraine earlier in the film, her destiny. There's an interesting relationship here between George, Marty, and the concept of destiny in Back to the Future. In a single action, George has made the world something else. Back to the Future came out in 1985. It's that curious film, there are so few, that straddles the world of the blockbuster. It made a fortune, it galvanized audiences across virtually every demographic, but it's also developed something of a cult following. We know Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly. We know Crispin Glover as George. There's a sort of familiarity for audiences that I think is the hallmark of some of Hollywood's greatest fantasies. It's certainly the case with my students. They know the register of Back to the Future as well as I do, though we are from completely different generations. For the rest of the segment, let's just pause, and for a moment, let's forget how much we love the movie. I'm going to forget how much I love the movie. And I want to subject this most loved of films to a pretty direct and explicit political reading. I want to ask, what is the politics underpinning this fantasy of Marty and George McFly and their fantastical time-traveling shenanigans? Let's start with Marty McFly is the all-American time traveler. He's played by Michael J. Fox. Fox at that time was everywhere, it seemed. In the daytimes, he was shooting Family Ties, which is a TV show I grew up with, and he shot Back to the Future all through the night, every night. In the film's plot, the inciting incident is that he is chased by Libyan terrorists and forced to travel through time to the year 1955. Why 1955? Why that specific year? And if we take it in broader terms, why that iconic era in American history? So this is Marty seeing 1955 for the first time. Note the poster. Barbara Stanwyck, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan is such a presence in this film. I'm going to come back to Reagan, but recall that Marty will tell the doc Reagan is president in 1985. I'm sure you're familiar with so many of these images. Zemeckis is really brilliant at capturing the familiarity and the comfort of 1950s Americana. Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. This is in fact a dream image of an innocent American suburbia. Think about where Marty just came from, 1985 suburbia. Not quite the hellhole of 2015 Hill Valley, but not a whole lot better. This suburbia of 1955, Hill Valley 1955, is something else. It takes us back into a dream memoryscape of what suburbia once was and what it once promised. So Marty's stuck and lost in time. But let's interrogate his situation for a second. Leaping into the utopian dream world of 50s America, it's kind of an iconic Americana. Marty conveniently leaps over two very important decades in American history, the turbulent 1960s and 1970s. Think of the staggering historical events Marty, fortunately for him, escapes in landing in 1955. The political tensions rife in the American counterculture, roughly the early to late 1960s. Think of the American failure in Vietnam and the essential failure of its foreign political identity in 1966 to 1975. Think of perhaps the grandest of all American failures, the failure of America's political ideals, the travesty of Richard Nixon's Watergate in the early 1970s. For those of us like me, maybe also like you, Back to the Future is a kind of time travel machine in itself. The movie takes us to the past and reconstructs that past. Once reconstructed, sitting alongside Marty in the Doc's DeLorean, we return safely to a reconstructed 1985. Now discovering Hill Valley of 1985 alongside Marty, what has become of American suburbia?
Nightmare.
Well, if Paul calls me, tell him I'm working at the boutique late tonight.
Linda, first of all, I'm not your answering service. Second of all, somebody named Greg or Craig called you just a little while ago.
Well, which one was it, Greg or Craig?
I don't know. I can't keep up with all of your boyfriends.
Hey. What the hell is this?
Breakfast.
Would you sleep in your clothes again last night?
Yeah, Yeah, what are you wearing, Dave?
Marty, I always wear a suit to the office. You all right?
Yeah.
I think we need a rematch, George.
Oh, a rematch. Why? Were you cheating?
No.
Hello.
Good morning.
Mom, Dad.
Marty wakes from a dream to discover that the great utopian dream of American suburbia has become reality. This is what the world should be, what it was always intended to be. This is the dream of 50 suburbia fully realized. A nice house on a great street. A nuclear family, intact, connected, prosperous, plugged into the social, cultural, and increasingly corporate world of the 1980s. Dave is heading off to the office. What are the consequences of Marty's reconstruction of history? The great film theorist Robin Wood coined a term to describe movies like Back to the Future that emerged so forcefully and so close together in roughly the mid-1980s. He called these films Reaganite cinema. This was a cinema that wanted to reconstruct the social upheaval of the past, the rise of the counterculture, the failure of Vietnam, the failure of political idealism after Watergate. Alongside Marty and Jennifer, his true love, alongside his socially and culturally and economically upwardly mobile parents, alongside the new reconstructed Doc, who has now been institutionally recognized, but most importantly, and I don't say this with any note of sarcasm, alongside the most profound image of capitalist success in Back to the Future, Marty now owns the sleek, black, four-wheel drive he had always desired.
How about a ride, mister?
Jennifer. Oh, you a sight for sore eyes. Let me look at you.
Marty, you're acting like you haven't seen me in a week.
I haven't.
You okay? Is everything all right?
Oh, yeah. Everything is great.
Everything is great. The family, the car, and the girl. The symbolic building blocks of the American dream, fully realized in Reagan's American suburbia, Hill Valley, 1985. As George tells us, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. Why do I love Back to the Future so much? For me, it's the perfect American fantasy, a reconstruction of social and political upheaval into the image of a very pleasant, optimistic, idealistic 1985. It wins us over with the fantasy, and what it puts to the side, or what it redacts from this historical record, is the questionable stuff of history that we really don't want to remember, because to remember it is painful. This is why Back to the Future is such an intoxicating and enduring fantasy. And no film industry has done fantasy as efficiently and as sophisticatedly as Hollywood. Thanks for listening.